A debate is basically lecturing each other and exchanging arguments. If you don't want to be lectured at, don't show up for debates.
I must also say, to discuss fracking that much was wonderful from a Republican standpoint.
Oh, yeah.
They couldn't talk about the Green New Deal enough for me. If they want to keep talking about Pennsylvania's future and the economy, I think we're joined now by Mark Lauder of the Trump-Pence campaign. Good evening, Mark. How are you? Oh, not there yet. We're waiting for Mark to come in. Maybe we can't find him. So what do you think about the fracking and the Green New Deal? Hey, Mark Lauder, welcome.
Yeah.
Hugh Hewitt and Ed Morrissey. What did you make of tonight's effect?
Well, I mean, I thought the vice president did an absolute brilliant job of explaining the president's record, and really, he knew more about the Biden-Harris plans than Harris knew herself.
I think you've got to be happy they were talking about the fracking and Green New Deal, Mark.
I mean, it's hilarious that they would sit there and deny it over and over again. I mean, even on other issues, one minute she's saying we're going to roll back the Trump tax cuts, but we're not going to raise your taxes. I mean, it was just ludicrous.
Ed, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that also I was not surprised at all that Vice President Pence was prepared for the prosecutorial record. I was even tweeting as Harris was bringing it up. I wonder if Mr. Pence has reviewed the record. Clearly prepared, and I think sterling preparation by Mike Pence in this debate. I don't sense that Senator Harris had the same sterling preparation.
No, I mean, clearly she didn't. I mean, she was on defense all night, just kept trying to, backtrack on her words and say something that we know to be true is something else. I mean, it was really just a poor performance for her. I think that the vice president was clear. He was calm. You didn't see him get worked up, but he also wasn't going to take it. He was going to interject when he needed to. He's going to correct the record when he needed to.
Mark Lauder, I want to ask you about the court packing question. The president brought it up. Joe Biden wouldn't answer. The vice president brought it up. Kamala Harris wouldn't answer, and the vice president wouldn't let it go. And I think to myself, as a Republican, this is a radical proposal that would undermine the law in the United States. You must be as pleased as punch that came up repeatedly.
Oh, absolutely. And he wasn't going to let her get away with it. I mean, the fact that Joe Biden even tries to claim this is a Trump distraction, it's his own party that's bringing this up. They were the ones who suggested it. And yet Kamala Harris and Joe Biden cannot answer the question because they know that not just conservatives, but even people middle of the road, they're like, no, we don't change the rules when we don't get our way. I mean, that's what kids do when take their ball home when it doesn't go their way. It's not the way it works.
We're speaking with Mark Lauder, Trump-Pence 2020 Director of Strategic Communications. You can find him at Mark_Lauder, Lotter. Mark, another point that I think that is likely to get a little bit lost in here is the point that Vice President Pence was making about China and Joe Biden. I mean, that was an actually really great moment, I think, when Harris, for some reason, claimed that Trump had lost the trade war with China, and Pence turned around and said Biden has never fought it. I mean, it came back around again later about being part of the establishment for 47 years and being part of what created the problem with China in the first place. Were you hoping for maybe a little bit more on that, or do you think that the point was made at that stage?
No, I mean, I think he made that point, and in a broader sense, I mean, people understand it. Not only is it about jobs and confronting China for what they have been doing, but look what they just recently did by unleashing this virus. I mean, it just shows you, and the vice president highlighted it so well, Joe Biden's weakness on China, his complete failure to hold them accountable economically or any other way. I mean, I often joke the only thing that Joe Biden's ever taken from China is $1.5 billion for his son. But we know that to be true, and I think that resonated. You didn't need to add the extra. I think people can connect the dots themselves.
Mark Lauder, we thank you for joining us tonight on the Salem Radio Network. Congratulations. I think the Vice President's going to be in a very good mood when you see him backstage. We will be back for more coverage. Ed Morrissey interviews Dennis Prager right after this. Stay with the Salem Radio Network for more continuing coverage of tonight's vice presidential debate.
he's doing TV.
Ed, you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, so he's going to do a TV hit now. I don't know how long the hit's going to be. Be prepared to come back and start with Prager, and then again, you can see the return as soon as he puts his cans back on. You know he's coming back, right?
Just the same way it happened in this past segment.
Yeah,
So, absolutely.
You took over beautifully. I'm glad we figured out how to give you a different video feed.
Salem Radio Network.
Yeah, that worked really nicely.
Okay, cool. I'll get Prager up in about 2 minutes. Stand by.
Sounds good. Good evening and welcome back to Salem Radio's coverage of the vice presidential debate. I'm Ed Morrissey of HotAir.com. Hugh Hewitt is hosting tonight. He'll be back with us in just a moment, but now we'd love to introduce our great friend Dennis Prager from Salem Radio Network. Dennis, welcome back to the air. And what are your first thoughts after this vice presidential debate?
I thought the vice president had a great demeanor and was reassuring to Americans. And nevertheless, my personal immediate response is frustration they throw out these lies. I mean, they say the president lies, but it's nothing compared to the Democrats and the left. The Charlottesville lie is one of the most obscene lies in American history. It should have been called that. He said, I mean, the vice president said it in passing, but he should have emphasized the president was talking about people demonstrating about statues, not about the Nazis, which was a different march. And he did mention, thank God, it's a little bizarre that a man with a Jewish child and Jewish grandchildren actually thinks they're refined Nazis. I mean, they need to say the lie is so vile and so stupid. So that's one example. And the economy, the president has this terrible economy. The economy is the result of lockdowns that are overwhelmingly caused by Democrats in democratic cities, which would utterly mismanage. I mean, that's what I mean. Just lie after lie, and this calm, wonderful man didn't call them out the way I would love to have seen them called out.
Dennis, it's your lovable colleague, Hugh. Do you think the Supreme Court packing issue matters to anyone besides me? I sure get into it, and I get very excited about it, and Ed and I talk about it. Does the average American know that we're talking about the fundamental upheaval in the United States that would be the expansion of the Supreme Court?
I don't know, and it's a very fair question. But if it is a fair question, it's very disturbing that we have reached the point where someone like you, and for that matter me, might think that a majority of the American people don't know what it means to increase the number of justices because you don't get your way on the numbers. They've had a liberal court since 1962, if not earlier. That's 60 years. And as soon as it might not be a liberal court, they will add more members. I mean, if that does not disgust Americans, nothing will.
With that said, and I agree with you, Dennis, wholeheartedly on this, but with that said, I think that the exchange went very badly for Senator Harris here because Mike Pence was asking a direct question. This is something that's come up, and it was very clear that Harris was trying to come up, basically throwing the kitchen sink at Pence, throwing everything in there except the answer to the question that was being asked. And I know it's sort of point scoring, it's sort of, judging style points. Maybe I'm the East German judge here for people who are really old. But I actually think that was one of her worst moments was her flailing around when Pence was asking her that direct question over and over again.
I also want to add and get you both on this. I think the more we talk about the Green New Deal, I just did a hit with David Plouffe on NBC, and David Plouffe said she held serve, which is a concession she didn't win, which is a concession that Mike Pence won. That's the way I read a Democrat strategist talking. However, she won the beginning on COVID because Mike Pence and the president don't have the courage yet to say, we did as well as anyone could have done on COVID. That's the only answer. They kind of got around to it with H1N1, but Dennis, does the president have to say he might be much more vigorous than Mike Pence in this? What is the answer about 210,000 Americans dead?
The answer is that the United States is 10th in the Western world in deaths per million. So is she prepared to say on stage, she who is thrilled with our allies, that you in Belgium and you in the United Kingdom and the other countries involved, you really, if we screwed up here, you are even worse. You incompetence, run by left-wing governments, one might add. So there are so many answers to this, like there would have been fewer had he been president. There would have been more lockdowns if he could have had his way. Why doesn't he say the fact of the matter is overwhelmingly the deaths in America are due to Democratic incompetence? The president does not control what happens in New York or Michigan.
It's a better answer. That's a much better answer. I wish they would give that, which is, of those 210,000 deaths, they're all tragic and most of them are Democratic. I mean, is that true, Ed Morrissey?
Yeah, I think absolutely. The biggest states that have had these problems have been New York, New Jersey, and California. California actually did a better job
No,
of managing this than.
no. Actually, California is minuscule. There is no rationale for the lockdown here. It is New York, New
There you go.
Jersey, and Michigan, and this is. And only the big cities in those places, not Rochester and Syracuse, but New York City. Why
Right.
why don't they say, oh, why do they tell that what Nancy Pelosi and De Blasio said? Hey, go to the Chinese New Year, celebrate. There's nothing happening.
Well, her answer to that is they didn't know. And you get the last minute, Dennis. They didn't know because you lied to them, Mr. President. And I think the answer is no, we didn't. We told on January 29th the world that this was dangerous. But I don't know how that works with the American voter. Last 30 seconds to you, Dennis.
I don't either. Anyway, had it been 100,000, they would say the same thing. 100,000 dead Americans because of you. If there had been 50,000, any number that there would have been. So it's completely demagogic.
You're right, but I wonder if it's effective. I know one thing. Fracking works for the Republicans in Pennsylvania. Dennis Prager, my friend, thank you for joining us. I'll be back for some final words with Ed Morrissey on tonight's Salem Radio Network broadcast.
Okay, so now are you clear from MSNBC for the night? I emailed you both
Welcome back to the post-debate wrap-up show here on the Salem Radio Network. Once again, here's Hugh Hewitt.
Thank you, America, for listening. Ed Morrissey is co-hosting with me tonight from the Twin Cities. Ed, I want to play one more cut for the audience to hear. Cut number 7 of the debate just concluded.
The United States has reduced CO2 more than the countries that are still in the Paris Climate Accord, but we've done it through innovation. And we've done it through natural gas and fracking, which, Senator, the American people can go look at the record. I know Joe Biden says otherwise now, as you do, but the both of you repeatedly committed to abolishing fossil fuel and banning fracking. And so by creating the kind of American innovation, we're actually steering toward a stronger and better environment. With regard to wildfires, President
That's
Trump
what I
and
wanted to get on, Ed.
forest-
What do you think that worked in Pennsylvania?
I think it works in Pennsylvania. I think it works in Ohio. I think it works in West Virginia, which hopefully isn't really a big issue. But Ohio and Pennsylvania, absolutely. I think it also works in the Midwestern states where, energy prices are linked to farm costs, which become a huge problem if you start escalating those costs. People remember that in the Midwest. I think that this is something that works pretty well in the suburbs, too, where people have to drive and commute to work.
They stepped on the Charlottesville lie too many times. They finally stepped on the rake. And she brought up the Charlottesville lie, and Mike Pence jumped on it, got a right jab in on the media at the same time as addressing right after that the selective editing. He said specific condemnation of the white supremacists and neo-Nazis. Will that be effective? Are the American people onto that lie?
Well, I certainly hope so, but I'm not necessarily sure that that's going to be the case. It's, the lie is traveled around the world. The truth is only now getting its boots on, so to speak. And I think that having Pence forcefully defend Trump on that point, I think will have at least some impact.
How did Mike Pence do in the first Republican debate of 2024?
I actually think he's laid out the case of his leadership, right? I mean, the issues are going to change. All that's going to change. But I think he made the leadership pitch tonight for the 2024 cycle. If he chooses to participate in it, he made the leadership pitch tonight. I think he was calm, cool, and collected through the whole thing and demonstrated the type of equanimity, I think, that people expect from Mike Pence. And I think this is a great follow-on from last week's debate, and I think it did really well for Republicans.
Very quickly, I'm so annoyed. I like Susan Page. I'm annoyed by moderators who can't get it right either way. Either they over-inject or they nag. And what they ought to be is flexible. There were some good exchanges going on there. All they had to be was flexible.
I actually thought she did a pretty good job, but then again, we're coming off of the last debate, so.
Right. Ed Morrissey, you're a real mensch. Thanks for joining me tonight. Thank you, America.
Thank you, sir.
Join the Salem Radio Network tomorrow. Follow Ed at Ed Morrissey on Twitter and at Hot Air. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Talk to you in the morning.